Hello and a very good morning to all News9 viewers. I'm Neha Bhan. Let's take a look at some of the stories making headlines this hour. We begin with, in the latest clash at the colleges and universities across the US, demonstrators clashed with authorities over tents and canopies they erected, violating school policy. 25 people were arrested, reportedly trespassing at the University of Virginia, after police clashed with pro-Palestinian protesters. Arrests came as protesters refused to remove tents from campus. Student demonstrators began their protest on a lawn outside the school chapel.
In on this encampment and are taking their umbrellas as of right now. They are moving them back. There has been gas that has been sprayed. We don't know if that is tear gas, but you can see that there has been gas that has been sprayed as they are moving in, and there is fighting in between them.
Protesters were also seen at the University of Michigan, where demonstrators chanted anti-war messages and waved flags during commencement ceremonies. Over 2,400 people have been arrested in at least 61 incidents since the 18th of April. Protesters demanding universities to cut ties with Israel or supportive companies have prompted agreements at some schools to cease demonstrations, averting disruption during finals and graduations. On the 3rd of May, demonstrators at Columbia University's Hamilton Hall unfurled a banner with the word Intifada. The White House then labeled the term as hate speech, referring to major Palestinian uprisings against Israeli control, including the first Intifada from 1987 to 1993 and the second from 2000 to 2005. Students and pro-Palestinian protesters took to the streets around New York University on Friday to protest the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas, as well as police actions against protesters. The New York Police Department cleared the NYU student encampment on Friday as the day began at the university in downtown Manhattan, according to media reports. Many of the protesters were asleep when the operation began.
Intifada.
Later in the morning, cleanup crews were seen taking down tents and chairs and scrapping up the remains of protest signs. Local media reported that around 13 arrests were made. Similar crackdowns have taken place at universities across the country, from Arizona State to Virginia Tech and from Ohio State to Yale. Police have arrested around 2,000 campus protesters so far. Hundreds of university students gathered in Havana on Friday in a pro-Palestinian rally while denouncing the United States for its police crackdown on students and professors in universities in the neighboring country. During the demonstration held at the University of Havana, the students called for a ceasefire to Israel's military campaign in Gaza amid escalating tensions on US campuses, resulting in student arrests and class suspensions. The pro-Palestinian protests in the Caribbean nation coincide with a period of heightened political tensions between Washington and Havana, with Cuba facing an economic crisis marked by shortages of essential goods, including food and medicine. The protest, attended by American students in Cuba, is among several solidarity demonstrations in support of the Palestinian cause.
U.S. students right now, they will be energized, and they are energized, seeing solidarity from people all over the world. And we realize that we're all in this together. It's tough to deal with intimidation. It's tough to deal with your future being at stake, but when you know it's worth it, it means a lot to see somebody from across the world tell you like, hey, we support you.
Para mostrar el apoyo a los estudiantes de las universidades de Estados Unidos, para mostrar que los estudiantes en cualquier parte del mundo están juntos, unidos, al frente de estas fuerzas de Estados Unidos y de Israel.
Police in Paris entered France's esteemed Sciences Po University on Friday and evacuated student activists who had occupied its premises in protest against Israel's actions in its war with Hamas in Gaza. Sciences Po has emerged as the focal point of French student demonstrations over the war and academic relations with Israel, which have spread throughout France, but have remained considerably smaller in scale compared to those witnessed in the United States.
De Paris à Gaza! Et de Strasbourg à Gaza!
The university was closed for the day on Friday with a heavy police presence around its main building.
I'm here because the riot police removed me. They dragged me out and they had me come here. But I'm here to denounce the ongoing genocide in Gaza because I want to show my solidarity with the Palestinian people and because I want this movement to spread to all the campuses. Tolbiac, Clignancourt. We saw the campuses protesting in France and that's what we are fighting for.
We step a quick break now. News and updates continue on the other side. Stay with us.
India's ever-evolving urban landscape is witnessing a new revolution. And this one comes on four wheels.
The affluence has been growing. Cars are becoming more a reflection of what you are.
Nobody's talking about hatchbacks. Now what next? The next is the SUV.
The contribution of SUVs is close to 55-60% of the automobile sales these days.
Is that even manufacturers like to sell SUVs?
So, how did a nation obsessed with fuel economy come to love heavy gas-guzzling sports utility vehicles? Let's look at how India fell in love with the SUV.
This and more. Streaming on News9 plus news is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. With the conflict between Israel and Hamas now in its 7th month, domestic waste has been piling up. Some municipalities have been left with little choice but to find new dumping grounds. The health of children as domestic waste piles up remains a major concern. More in this report.
Abu Mohammed walks past a makeshift landfill, less than 500 feet from his home in central Gaza. With the conflict between Israel and Hamas now in its 7th month, domestic waste has been piling up. Some municipalities have been left with little choice but to find new dumping grounds, like this. Mohammed says the dump's proximity to his home has him worrying about the health of his family.
This street was completely empty. We did not suffer like this before. The municipality used to be active, but after the war and the aggression that occurred, it ceased its operations. This waste here has brought diseases. Our children are suffering from various ailments that we have never seen before, such as skin pimples and rashes. Personally, I returned from the clinic just an hour ago. There were numerous cases, including my child, who had a fever. The doctor said that it was the result of the pollution here.
Yusuf Hamad is a municipality worker. The area is not a designated dumping zone, he says, but there was little choice after road blockages stopped them from reaching the official landfill. Hamad also warned of the environmental hazard it poses. It could attract insects and stray animals, he says, and could potentially contaminate the groundwater. Aid agencies warned in February that the majority of people had no access to clean drinking water, and that sanitation services were wholly ineffective, with none of Gaza's wastewater treatment systems working.
Turkey has announced that it's halting trade with Israel worth $7 billion a year until a permanent ceasefire and humanitarian aid are secured in Gaza. Israel denounced the decision as breaking trade agreements.
Turkey has become the first of Israel's key partners to halt trade over the conflict in Gaza. Trade Minister Omar Bolat said on Friday Ankara would not resume the trade with Israel until a permanent ceasefire and humanitarian aid for Gaza are secured. This was Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan.
All of the West is working for Israel. Starting with America, they are all working for Israel. All of these means are being mobilized to unfortunately condemn the waifs and strays, the poor and the have-nots of Palestine, to death in the face of Israel's bombs. We could not have remained patient in the face of these, so we took our steps. There was a trade volume of $9.5 billion between us.
Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz criticised the suspension, saying it breaks international trade agreements and calling it how a dictator behaves. The militant group Hamas, which rules Gaza, praised the decision as brave and supportive of Palestinian rights. Last month, Turkey curbed exports of steel, fertilizer and jet fuel, among other products, over what it said was Israel's refusal to allow Ankara to take part in aid drops over Gaza. All remaining trade is now halted. Turkey has denounced Israel's military campaign in Gaza and sent thousands of tons of aid for Gazans. This week it said it would join South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Turkey's commercial ties with Israel have prompted a domestic backlash and hurt the ruling AK party in local elections in March. Turkish exporters with firm orders are now looking for ways to send their goods to Israel via third countries, 4 export company owners told Reuters. They said the decision had caught them by surprise.
A year ago, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz promised to upgrade the German military with a massive one-off fund. Take a look at the report on how is Germany spending its €100 billion special defence fund.
For the pilots of the Bundeswehr's air transport group, this is a big deal. Finally getting a shot of the Chinook heavy-lift helicopter. This, though, just a training exercise on Dutch machines. The aim is for the Germans to be ready to fly in 2027, when their new Chinooks arrive to replace the decades-old Sikorskis.
The new helicopter flies much faster than the old one. It can transport about twice as much as our old helicopters and is equipped with the latest technology. So, of course, it's a big step for us into the future.
The price tag for the 60-odd Chinooks is €7 billion. New hangars will be built here to house them. And not only that, the state-of-the-art Israeli-built Arrow air defence system will also be located here at a cost of $4 billion. And the runway is being widened to allow NATO aircraft to land here.
All of that means that this airbase south of Berlin is being turned into one of the most important in Europe.
You can really see that we're making history here. You can say that we will be the future home of the Air Force's heavy transport helicopters, making us one of NATO's largest helicopter bases outside the US.
It's being paid for out of a one-off $100 billion military modernization fund set up after Russia invaded Ukraine. For decades, Germany has missed NATO's 2% target on defence spending. In 2024, it hit that target. Now the question is what happens once the special fund runs out. To keep hitting the 2% target, the government will have to spend an extra €30 billion every year on defence. That's ignited a debate about how to pay for it all.
I think the topic of security and defence is being discussed much more seriously among the population than it was a few years ago. I notice this myself regularly at different events, that people have a much greater understanding of the Bundeswehr's needs.
Such sentiments may reflect a growing shift in attitudes towards the Bundeswehr. Whether it will translate into a long-term funding boost is very much up in the air.
An experimental F-16 fighter jet controlled by artificial intelligence took U.S. Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall on a historic flight at Edwards Air Force Base in California. The move can be considered one of the biggest advances in military aviation since the introduction of stealth in the early 1990s. The AI-controlled F-16 called Vista flew the USAF Secretary in lightning-fast maneuvers at more than 550 miles an hour that put pressure on his body at 5 times the force of gravity. It went nearly nose-to-nose with a second human-piloted F-16 as both aircraft raced within 1,000 feet of each other, twisting and looping to try to force their opponent into vulnerable positions. The U.S. Air Force is considering an AI-enabled fleet of more than 1,000 unmanned warplanes to be operating by 2028. We slip on a quick break now. News and updates continue on the other side. Stay with us.
Start with the end in mind. You need to know where you want to reach. Every morning that we wake up, we are exercising our choice. The destiny is decided. The results are known that I'm going to win. Life of a goalkeeper is something which has always intrigued me. When you come into a stadium, this is the highest level of pressure. When I set out to do something, I decide in my mind that failure is not an option.
What you feel very strongly about, those are the stories to tell.
I have a mind which is absolutely restless. Mind and body are entangled sensations. That brings me back to golf. It's an amazing game.
This is not a perfect game. You only learn from them.
If you have a formula to a success, then you can replicate it.
I feel this is my first step. I'm starting now.
Winner is first born in the mind. I think, therefore I am. We are all about our mind.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. The latest in Russia-Ukraine war escalations. Russian forces launched attacks on Ukraine's Kharkiv, Dnipro regions and the port city of Odisha. At least 2 civilians have been killed in the assault, with a food factory set ablaze and other infrastructure, homes and buildings damaged on the 4th of May. In Kharkiv, a Russian missile attack injured 6 employees and caused business premises to catch fire. President Zelensky revealed that Russia deployed 8 missiles and nearly 70 guided aerial bombs on communities and frontline positions. Ukraine's Air Force also downed 13 Shahed drones targeting Kharkiv and Dnipro overnight. Additionally, Ukraine's 110th Mechanized Brigade successfully brought down a Russian Su-25 fighter bomber over the Donetsk region, one of the areas Moscow claims to have annexed.
It is very important to be focused these days. A special commendation goes to the warriors of the 110th Separate Mechanized Brigade for taking down another Russian Su-25 in the Donetsk region. Well done, boys. Only this morning, our warriors have already shot down 13 Shahed drones. During the day, Russian terrorists used 8 missiles of various types and almost 70 guided aerial bombs against our border communities and positions at the front. We should all keep in mind that only by force can Russia be made to leave Ukraine alone. This will happen. Our efforts are sure to bring that about.
Ukraine presented an AI-generated spokesperson called Victoria, who will make official statements on behalf of its foreign ministry. The ministry said it would, for the first time in history, use a digital spokesperson to read its statements, which will still be written by humans. Dressed in a dark suit, the spokesperson introduced herself as Victoria She, a digital person, in a presentation posted on social media. The figure gesticulates with her hands and moves her head as she speaks. The Foreign Ministry's press service there said the statements given by She would not be generated by AI, but written and verified by real people. It's only the visual part that the AI helps us to generate, the Ukrainian Foreign Minister said, adding that the new spokesperson was a technological leap that no diplomatic service in the world has yet made. Britain's opposition Labour Party won a parliamentary seat in northern England on Friday and control of several councils, inflicting heavy losses on the governing Conservatives to pile more pressure on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
The people of Blackpool South have spoken for Britain.
Britain's opposition Labour Party claimed a big early win against Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his governing Conservative Party in local elections on Friday.
Well, Mr. Speaker,
the victory echoes recent polls which indicate the beginning of the end of 14 years of Conservative rule and of Sunak's leadership.
We've got a billionaire Prime Minister.
Labour inflicted heavy losses on the Conservatives, securing a parliamentary seat in the northern English town of Blackpool and gaining control of several councils.
I declare that Christopher Paul Webb is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Blackpool South constituency.
The results set the tone for what will be 2 closely watched days of local results before a national election later this year. Labour leader Keir Starmer is steaming ahead of the Prime Minister in most opinion polls, which seem to show an appetite for change in the UK. He spoke in Blackpool after the win there on Friday.
It is a fantastic result, a really first-class result. And here in Blackpool, a message has been sent directly to the Prime Minister. Because this was a parliamentary vote. This was directly to Rishi Sunak to say we're fed up with your decline, your chaos and your division, and we want change.
Voters cast their ballots on Thursday for more than 2,000 local authority seats across England and a handful of high-profile mayoral elections, including in the capital, London. Blackpool South was the only parliamentary seat up for grabs after the Conservative lawmaker there quit over a lobbying scandal.
The first flight will leave in 10 to 12 weeks.
British leader Sunak had hoped announcing increased defence spending and passing his divisive plan to send illegal asylum seekers to Rwanda might win over voters.
We are ready. Plans are in place.
But the losses could again fuel calls for him to step down.
It is now time.
One polling expert told Reuters that, based on the results so far, the Conservatives could be looking at their worst local election results for 40 years and were on course for a defeat in the national election.
Voting this bill through Parliament today.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of The Bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. News and updates continue on the other side. Don't go anywhere. This is me, Neha, signing off for the day.
Film and entertainment is definitely one of the levers for any country to build its brand.
We are getting global. I feel that we're just on the takeoff.
More and more films are becoming language agnostic.
Content is a universal language.
There's one audience in the world.
Absolutely. End of the day, we all are like brothers who have mutual respect for each other from a different land.
Watch Allu Arjun on Duologue with Barun Das. Streaming on News9 Plus.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, the US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, diamonds being a dream product,
something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined, and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining, and of course, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
Welcome to a brand new episode of Tech Talk with your favorite host Shruti Sharma. You've tuned into the right